America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Welcome, everyone. Roll call. Declarations of conflict of interest, please.
Councilmember Abram.
Here and none.
Councilmember Bixel.
Here and none.
Vice Mayor Franco.
Here and none.
Councilmember Moniz.
Here and none.
Mayor Bublak.
Here and none. All right. Item 4 is approval of agenda as posted or amended. I would like to have 7D and E, 7 David and Edward, be pulled to the next meeting of September 24th.
Motion to approve as amended.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Will you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Abram.
Yes.
Councilmember Bixel.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Franco.
Yes.
Councilmember Moniz.
Yes.
Mayor Bublak.
Yes. It passed with a 5-0. All right. Now we're going to move on to the special time here for the presentation Employee Services Awards. And Vice Mayor, will you help me with this? Well, Miss Eddie takes care of the...
Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff, and the public. This evening, we have the privilege to honor the dedication, commitment, and hard work of some of our employees. Their hard work and dedication bring value to our organization as well as our community. Each of you have an unwavering passion and loyalty to this organization, and this does not go unnoticed. You are what makes our city truly exceptional. We are deeply grateful for all that you do and thankful to have you as part of the city of Turlock. We will be happy to share pictures on social media following the meeting. Of the employees receiving recognition, we have some staff with us this evening. Please come forward and accept your certificate as your name is called. Okay, these are the one-year Employee Service Awards, and they could work. Some of them have worked longer than a year. It's just the way the program falls. So don't yell at me if I call your name when it's just 1 year. Charlotte Calvario. Leo Gonzalez. Okay, Darlene Ingersoll. Po Kiek. Janine Lee. Michael Lenhart. Paul Lohr. Stephanie Mora. Bill Morris. Nick Showalter. Anthony Sims. Okay, 5 years of service or a little more. Michael Ibarra. Sheila Machado.
Thank you. Thank you.
10 years of service, Juan Vargas.
All right, she's on 3. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Thank you.
20 years of service, Jason Bernard.
Right. 1, 2, 3.
Steve Rodriguez.
Go.
25 years of service, Mark Crivelli.
Thank you, Sarah. That was fun. Did we miss one?
Mayor,
Yes.
Leo Gonzalez just came in.
Oh. He just showed up?
Leo, come on up.
Nicely done. Congratulations. Sorry, we almost missed you there.
1, 2, 3.
Very good, very good. All right. Now, appointment by motion, reappointing Michael Lynch to the Measure A Citizens Oversight Tax Committee for a term expiring on 7/1 of 2027.
Move to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Will you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Abram?
Yes.
Councilmember Bixel?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Franco?
Yes.
Councilmember Moniz?
Yes.
Mayor Bublak?
Yes, passes 5-0. Welcome back, Mr. Lynch. And now, Chief Hedden. You've been standing there waiting since 5:59. Come on, call my name. Say my name, say my name.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, I wanted to provide a quick update on homelessness and discuss where we've been historically and where we are today. Much of the work that's been done on this space has been done on the backs of our employees in the code enforcement program, neighborhood resources, our police officers, and public works. They do a tremendous job keeping Turlock clean. And I understand that a lot of our communities see the homeless out there daily, and they feel the impacts of the homeless. But I want the community to know that our staff is committed to doing what we can to reduce the impacts of vagrancy on the Turlock community. So what I've done is provided kind of a historical outline going back to the Boise decision in 2018. In Martin versus Boise, the Ninth Circuit Court held that cruel and unusual punishment clause of the Eighth Amendment precluded enforcement of statutes prohibiting sleeping outside against homeless individuals with no access to alternatives. So that sort of turned things upside down in terms of enforcing anti-camping ordinances in communities. And it was a struggle for communities all over the Ninth Circuit. So looking at the point in time counts, what I did was highlighted as we go along this timeline what the point in time counts were. So 153 in 2018, I don't know what happened there. I think that's a bit of an outlier. The point in time count was 248 in 2017. And I think that correlated where we saw the homeless population start going up with the impacts of Prop 47 and AB 109. Moving on to 2021, that was another significant period in the city of Turlock. After years of not enforcing under the Boise decision, homeless encampments were, they had grown to some up to 70. There was one near Burger King with 36, another one with 45 homeless individuals living in them, and they began impacting neighborhoods. And in one case, I remember as I was coming on the as the police chief at this time, I was briefed, and it almost knocked me out of my chair to learn that there was a business that was impacted to the extent where it was threatened to be closed down due to health and safety concerns with this homeless encampment. So the city began taking action then to clean up homeless encampments. And they did just that. As I took over as police chief, the last encampment remained. They had removed the larger encampments, and we finally removed the last encampment near Burger King. That was 36. And the mayor and I actually walked that homeless encampment. I don't know if you remember that, Mayor, but it's shocking to see what goes on in there. There's a lot of crime associated with these large encampments. A lot of people are victimized in the encampments. There's rodent infestations, overpopulation of animals. We often see dogs and cats overbred in these homeless encampments, and they really create just a unsafe environment. The homeless encampment crisis was brilliant. I think it was cutting edge at the time to help give us tools to address these encampments and camping in other spaces. It provided additional bed space at Turlock Gospel Mission, and then also through a contract at the fairgrounds, provided 200 additional beds to use in overflow capacity. Now, I will say this, as we had the ordinance in place, we never saw the overflow shelter used at all. We never needed to access those cots. The shelters here at Turlock typically had space available, so we continued to enforce. And when I say enforce, we weren't necessarily arresting people or citing people merely for camping, but it gave us the tools to go and direct them to resources, and if they refused, move them from where they are, collect property, and address the immediate concern. In 2022, more bad news from the Ninth Circuit. The Ninth Circuit Court affirmed that the district court's ruling that grants passed could not, consistent with the Eighth Amendment, enforce its anti-camping ordinances against homeless persons for the mere act of sleeping outside. So in 2023, we continued to look at measures and things that we could do to improve quality of life in Turlock. And one of the things, directing you back to around October 2023, we changed the park hours because we were seeing people overnight camping in the parks, and we changed that to 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. And that gave our officers the ability to go in and educate people initially and run people out of the parks. That's not just homeless people, that's all people. That's people that are there for other nefarious acts or vandalizing the park, you name it. But we saw a tremendous impact with our officers going into the parks. They did a really good job at educating people, and that has reduced the population. So when we've seen people in the parks during the day, you hit that 10 o'clock mark when the officers are rolling up at 10:15, and that activity really just come to a halt. However, I will note, and I know that some of our other residents, I learned today through some pass-on, thank you, Director Fisher, that we're seeing some issues at Columbia Park. I want the community to know that we are addressing them. We're working on that to the best of our ability. No pedestrian median signs that we put up in 2023, pretty much everywhere. We're having some significant concerns in the Monte Vista, Gear, Countryside, and Golden State areas. I don't know about you, but driving around Turlock, we're not seeing what we were seeing before with people standing out in those medians. And when they are, we're immediately addressing that. Since May of 2022, we've collected nearly 1,800 shopping carts from enforcing our ordinance on shopping carts. There's been some citations issued out of that. We started out without issuing citations, doing an education model because it had been relatively untouched over the years. So we've seen a tremendous impact. We're seeing less shopping carts around the city. I know we do see some, and we address that as it comes up. But there's not a day that goes by that I don't see our code enforcement officers with a bedload of shopping carts or garbage. But it's a new problem that we're seeing now with the makeshift carts that you see tied together, or strollers in kind of a wagon chain, so we continue to work on that and trying to lessen the impacts of that storage of property in the community. Some good news, I think, in 2024 with the Supreme Court's ruling. It was a 6-3 decision. Laws on enforcing camping bans do not violate the U.S. Constitution and does not constitute cruel and unusual punishment. And what this ruling did essentially was it turned control back over to the local communities to create their own standards and not just a one-size-fits-all for enforcement of anti-camping and addressing some of these issues. So that is the law today. And I will highlight on this slide that overall from the year before, the homeless point-in-time count is down. We were at 201. So we're sort of seeing that trend down. And that, again, is just through the work of reunification, through the work of the care team, and trying to help people out of homelessness. Our enforcement process, initially just the mere presence, somebody like me coming up, standing here in uniform and responding to a complaint, talking to the individual, just explaining what the problem is. Hey, we had a complaint that you have trash and property strewn about the park. It needs to be cleaned up and addressed. Going through the information, getting their name, statistical data. Why do you have trash all over? Why are you in this situation? Why are you homeless? Are you open to services? Next, if the violation continues, we move into an administrative citation. This is a local citation that the city essentially prosecutes and handles. It's typically a fine. And the next process is a misdemeanor. So all of our Turlock municipal codes can be charged as a misdemeanor. And then kind of the last step in the process is when we have no relief, and we're continuing to document. So all of these steps in this process are a documentation of the pattern of behavior continuing, where people are failing to meet these community standards. This can be dialed up, and the person could be arrested and jailed for the offense likely to continue. The Community Assistance Response and Engagement Team is the care team for the City of Turlock Police Department. This is a collateral assignment. Officers on this team sign up on an overtime basis to engage unsheltered persons within the city of Turlock and provide resources. At last check, there were 9 assigned to the team. Each contact is tracked and data is maintained related to the person's situation, helping us to better understand trends in our unsheltered homeless population, target locations, and this helps us prevent encampments and build relationships. A success story on the care team side, what's really a collaborative effort of our crime prevention team, our neighborhood resource officer, our code enforcement officers. There was a couple, I will not identify the business that they were staying at, but they were staying at a business on Gear Road. They had been 15 years homeless in the city of Turlock. The woman was pregnant, pretty close to having the baby, and we engaged them and started going through the care model to direct them to resources. We learned that they had family in Oklahoma. So we set up the reunification process with the county's care team, footing the bill. So not to be confused with the city's care team, but the county's outreach team that you see driving around the black trucks. You often see them here in the parks. They have a local office within the city of Turlock. They got that couple on a bus and on their way to Oklahoma. And as I understand it, while they were in Arizona, she went into labor, had the baby in the state of Arizona. They were hospitalized for a period of time before mom and baby were healthy enough to travel. They put them back on a bus, and I'm happy to report that they were reunified with family in Oklahoma and by all accounts doing well. This is what a sample contact resource sheet looks like. The sample resource form allows officers to use this form to collect data, including contact information, how long the person's been homeless, where they're originally from, what services they are using or requesting, where their nearest family is living, and any barriers to shelter. There's other statistical data. And with this contact resource sheet, there's a tear-off that we give to the individual that we're contacting that provides phone numbers and addresses for local resources, whether it be shelter or substance abuse counseling, etc. These are our care team contacts. So this shows you from starting in 2021 to the current year where we are. This doesn't show you all of the contacts that our officers are doing out in the community engaging homeless individuals. This is just where one of those forms were filled out and we've either updated statistical information or it's a new person that we're engaging. There was a lot going on in the homeless space. If you remember right at the end of June when the Supreme Court ruled in Grants Pass, and then July 25th, 2024, the governor put out an executive order for homeless encampment cleanups and was directing communities to also clean up encampments and work in this area. And there was at that time, business owners reported seeing an influx of homeless people in the downtown area around Central Park. And it also caused me concern, to be frank, because I saw the same thing. I thought, typically there was 1 or 2, and now we're seeing, up to 11, 12, and I didn't recognize some of the faces. So I set out to work with Captain Rodriguez and his team to find out why. Like, let's not just assume that these people are all coming from out of the area and that other agencies, other jurisdictions are now waking up and doing what Turlock was doing all along and enforcing and pushing them into Turlock. I wanted to know the answer, for better, for worse. So they went out and gained talked to 40 individuals. There were 26 males and 14 females. We learned that the length of the time in Turlock, that 7 of them had been in Turlock for less than 1 year, and 33 had been in Turlock for longer than 1 year. And as you can see by the chart, of those relocated from other cities, one has been in Turlock for 24 years from San Jose, one from Las Vegas for a year, one from Mendota a year, Hollywood 1 month, Monterey 3 weeks, and Patterson 1 day. But we see this with the transient homeless population. We're a city on the 99 corridor. So we're, one of the things that I do as a police chief is I get opportunities through gatherings, training events to talk to the other police chiefs. And this is not unique to Turlock. This is what everyone is experiencing. So living here on the 99, we're experiencing what Lodi, Tulare, some of the other cities, Merced, are experiencing with the homeless people. They're transitory by nature. They're hopping on oftentimes public transportation and then winding up within communities. Oftentimes they don't stay here long because they don't have established roots here and they're moving on to the next community. Just some pictures of our larger projects. I think it's easy to kind of forget where we were historically and where we are today. These pictures go back to the beginning of when 2021, 2022 area, when we were enforcing the local emergency and cleaning up homeless encampments. So before and after pictures of certain locations in town. I don't know if anybody remembers West Glenwood, but I used to pass that on my work all the time. It was terrible. So occasionally we get, one or two carts out there or a motor home or two or a vehicle, and those are easy to address because we haven't allowed it to get to this point. Just the other day, I was exiting the freeway and my blood pressure shot up when I saw, makeshift encampment on the side of the road. And I thought I need to get over there and take pictures of this and report it to code enforcement. And as I was pulling up to turn around, there was a code enforcement truck pulling up to address it. And I thought, awesome, we're in really good hands. I'm going to brag about the team a little bit because they do tremendous work and it's all on their backs. I'm proud of them. South Tully Road and Taylor Court, just more of what was going on. Friday cleanups. With our Friday cleanups, we've removed over 589,000 pounds of garbage from the community, and that included 888 trips to scavenger. Could you imagine what it would be like if we just put this on pause? And I've often said that, right? Because we start to get comfortable with the way things look, and we get frustrated with new things. And I've often said, well, what if we just put on the brakes for a month, just to see what it would be? And then staff's like, oh, please no, because it would be a tremendous undertaking. But these cleanups are having a tremendous impact on blight in our community, the overall appearance. We're not perfect, but we're getting there, and we're doing the best we can with all of our resources that we're providing, including the new ordinances that are coming forward to help us have tools to address these things. Daily projects, Broadway parks. This is kind of a typical day for code enforcement or an NRO. When they see stuff like this at the parks, they go out and you can see a sign there on the bench with the property before and after. If there's no one around, this is abandoned property, and they're taking that and they're tagging that because they want the person to know, like, hey, we're not trying to take your stuff. You can't store it here at the park because it disrupts the enjoyment of the rest of the community at the park. And sometimes there's, not to get too vulgar, but there's health hazards and stuff contained within that. We don't want it in our parks. We don't want it around children. So we post that. They can come and collect the property. Oftentimes they don't, but that option is there and available. Just more daily project pictures, and that concludes my presentation. Are there any questions?
Questions for the chief? Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, this is a public participation time. It'll be 3 minutes, and if it's subject matter that our city can deal with, and then if you're going to speak regarding something that is on the agenda, please hold off not speaking in public comment at that time. So I apparently have one card. Ramon?
Good evening, council and members of the community.
Is that on?
Can you hear me fine?
I don't think so.
The mic's on or?
Hang on, he's coming.
Good evening, council members and members of the community. As far as I know, there's still work that needs to do, but honestly, I've been seeing homeless people everywhere. And while I was walking around, driving around the downtown at Central Park, I saw an individual shooting drugs, and also walking around the building, the abandoned rainbow fabrics. There's clothing that is smeared with feces. So downtown Turlock again, it needs beautification because people, they're still finding ways to complain, but also we need to take this opportunity to make our town enjoyable, as well as helping homeless people to get off the streets and get the help that they need, because we have many programs such as the care team and various organizations to help. And also, as leaders, you need to tell Sacramento and Washington to step up, because we can't do it all with our hands because we're just a city. But Sacramento and Washington, D.C. need to get on and provide resources to combat the seriousness of homeless and to provide help in need for those who are suffering from economic hardships or escaping from domestic situations, as well as getting people who are suffering sorts of mental health and substance abuse to get aid, especially if they had to go through to psychiatric hospital or state hospital, because we need to provide the help to those that they need, as well as keeping our community safe. Also, about the traffic on Marshall and Crane, they need to have stop signs, because on Marshall, there have been various car crashes, and in some of these streets, you can't even see because there are cars parked around, and if you can't see there are cars coming around, that's why there are so many car crashes. And also, Minaret and East Avenue needs to have a stop sign for Minaret and another street, because there's also some car crashes. And the traffic lights, they still need to work perfectly because they're out of sync, and especially in downtown with Golden State and Olive, the traffic's bad. We need to fix that as soon as possible. Thank you.
Anyone else who did not fill out a card wishing to speak at public comment?
Good evening. My name is Joel Ordaz, last name Ordaz. Thank you for allowing me to come here. Thank you for the public. I'm from Stanislaus State. I'm one of the students there. I'm gonna be honest, I don't have much of a concern here because I'm from Madera. I just have to ask a question so I could be in record and get credit. So,
What's my favorite color?
so my question is, how do you guys deal with all this while making the community happy at the same time, like the homeless? That's just my question.
Thank you.
You want a one-word answer?
It could be one word.
Impossible to make everybody happy.
Okay.
It's never gonna happen.
All
But
right.
go get your credit at school.
Go
Stay in
Warriors.
school. Graduate.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good
Anybody
job.
else? Anybody else need credit? Come on, John. Come on, John.
Way past. Well, last meeting, Mr. Petrolakis said he was looking for ideas and with staff on homelessness. Well, here, I got you an idea. I did my homework, and I've known them for this about a long time and everything else like that, but, and it's about homeless. Okay, I'm John Gebbeline, by the way, but it's just something that we as a community have to do, and it's not you guys. You can't do it all. I mean, I can go through all the list of, Salvation Army apartments, Modesto Men's Ministry, Jessica's House, West Side Ministry, the Gospel Mission, and the United Samaritans. Those aren't funded by you guys. Those are funded by the citizens of this state and this county and everything else. So it's you can do something, but that's why I brought this. It's an idea, and it's to me it's a good idea. You can't do it in downtown San Jose, Turlock, and have it happen. It's gotta be, like I say, you know, all those places I just mentioned are good organizations, but the government's not the one, doing it. It's the citizens that are doing it, and the good people that are running these organizations and everything else, and finding those organizations. I said last week, there was an oversight committee from the state of California that showed $24 billion was spent in 5 years from, I believe it was 2018 to 2022. 24 billion, not million, 100,000, billion on homelessness, okay? And nobody knows where the money went, how many people did it. So when we say we need resources, those were resources. They weren't spent efficiently. They weren't spent with whatever, but did the governor quit or anything? Now, the governor, I can tell you, has done his part. He is great. Mr. Head, if you need somebody to help clean up a homeless shelter, he's the guy to call. Because, I mean, you've seen all the good pictures of him helping out and everything else like that. He's a guy that I think that's what he's going to be doing after he leaves the office and everything like that, is cleaning up that. But he hasn't said anything about that. Now, they passed laws, and one of the laws is this bringing people before a court and everything else. But if we don't have all these people, even if it gets through the ACLU and everything else, you're not going to get this done unless we have beds and counselors and everything else. So, thank you.
Anybody else? Here we go.
I just briefly, Milt Treeweiler, Turlock citizen. I've lived here all my life. Just briefly wanted to remind you that I was very instrumental into getting Measure A passed. I'm very proud of that fact. It's what's giving us our roads here in Turlock, and I see a lot of those roads in the west side, and it's really nice that I could help get those roads for the west side and also other parts of town. I was very nice that I could get raise for the police department, and now we're waiting for a raise for the fire department. Measure A has done this for us because it got us all these funds. And if you want to go back 4 years into history, you'll find out that there were some people who didn't support it, but I'll talk about that another day. Thank you.
Anybody else not running for office, please? Okay.
That's good, because electioneering in a council meeting is illegal.
Yes,
Welcome, Ron.
thank you. Okay, so I too wanted to review the history of Measure A. So back in 2019, when a sales tax was first seriously discussed, the concept clearly was supported by 4 out of 5 council members. It was supported by the city manager, city staff, and also by the unions. I would say there was little doubt of a sales tax measure being placed on the 2020 ballot. Next slide, please. One of the first things that was done in November of 2019 was there was a series of 4 community workshops held in each district to raise awareness of the financial situation. The city manager, along with the district member for that district, hosted that meeting. I was at 3 of 4 of them. They were very well attended. I think one had at least 60 people, if not more. Next slide, please. This is one of the charts that was shown by the city manager. You can see on the green line the decline of the reserve fund to dangerous levels. Next slide, please. In February of 2020, the report of a survey that was that the council commissioned for $40,000, if I remember correctly, showed that a significant voter support for public safety and community services measure. Next slide, please. And in January of 2020, a Community Priorities Advisory Committee, CPAC, was formed to review policy and sales tax options. This was mentioned by Jeffrey Lewis at the last meeting. Next slide, please. It consisted of 20 members of the community, And Councilmember Larson at the time described them as some of Turlock's best and brightest minds. And what they did is for 6 months, they did a very deep review of the city finances and of the policies and procedures. Next slide, please. And they ended up recommending a sales tax. And next slide, please. This is a chart from, I think in March of this year. You can see the general fund reserve balance, how it was in dangerous territory under the last administration. Then after Mayor Bublak became mayor, it steadily climbed. So, and we didn't receive any Measure A funds until the third quarter of 2021. But by that time, we had a reserve fund of over $15 million. So actually, you should get a lot of credit for saving Turlock from bankruptcy. Hey, I got that all in. And I'm not running for office either.
Thank you for that.
Good evening, I'm Mary Jackson. I'm not running for office, but I find it interesting that we can pick out who's politicking and who's not when we're up on the dais. So I guess maybe a show of hands would be great if you can tell me if you voted for Measure A or not. If that would be fair. Right? So it's interesting that you're willing to not support something, but you're more than willing to spend the money. And spend the money on things that are what I think the majority of people who worked hard on it really probably wouldn't have supported. So that's where it gets really frustrating. So it's kind of interesting. It's like we can pick and choose when we're going to politic or where we live, if we live in our district or we don't live in our district. And so it's just, to me, very interesting how one person is politicking but the other person isn't. So I hope that when we're on the dais and if we are running for office, that we are very honest and truthful when we're up there. And I wouldn't be pointing out other people. Thank you.
Good luck in TID. Anybody else? You just lied to the public. I'm just trying to be efficient here. I did not say that.
No, you didn't.
All right, Bob.
There's talk about the reserve fund actually rising before the passage of Measure A. And that's mostly due because there was such a drain of employees leaving the city at the time that were not being replaced, that there were leftover funds. The city was drowning. It just kind of had a little swell because it was drowning, because we were losing so many people that you didn't notice it through the reserve fund. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, we'll close public comment and move on to consent calendar. Again, items 7E and D and E are going to be pulled for the next meeting. Are there any others? If not,
Motion to approve as amended. Second.
we have a motion and a second. Will you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Abram?
Yes.
Councilmember Vixel?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Franco?
Yes.
Councilmember Moniz?
Yes.
Mayor Bublak?
Yes, and it passes with a 5-0. All right, final reading. Mr. Petrilakis, do you have anything you need to say, or I'll just open it to the public?
I have nothing I need to say.
Okay. I'll open it to the public. This is final reading on the ordinance. Bob?
On the ordinance, the one that restricts sitting or laying I know that enforcement law is always the discretion of the officer, and we have a very fine group of officers. But once you put that wording into an ordinance, it's there and can be interpreted by any future councils or city managers or police chiefs or officers as they wish. And I wish that the sitting and laying was a little more restrictive than just the blanket. Thank you.
I do want to thank the chief for his report on the homeless issue, However, I would just like to remind you, I talked about my trip to Europe, and I did try to find homeless people in Europe, and for some reason, I did find some along rivers, but that was the exception. There were so few homeless people, but I never had an opportunity to figure out how come they were not homeless. But my understanding is they actually take care of the people that have mental illness issues, and they just take care of them. I mean, they have places and facilities where they can take care of them. We're not necessarily taking care of the homeless, we're just pushing them around. It hasn't really changed that much. And it's kind of disturbing that we're not actually finding a solution to the problem. We're just kind of covering the problem up. I don't know how to describe it. It's kind of, we've got to work on it. I mean, we cannot just keep covering it up. It's not going to get better. I know we're saying we have less homeless people, but that's a temporary phase. They'll be back. There'll be more, because there's going to be more poverty. There's going to be more mental illness. It's not going to go away. And if you don't take care of these people, they're going to be on the streets or someplace else because they have no place to go. The solution is having a place for them to go. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I'm a prolific generator of presentations.
I'm going to come to you if I need one.
Okay, you can. Okay, so this is some pictures that I showed from before. My concern, you know, when I saw that wording, sitting, lying, you know, I had concerns too. But if we take that out of the existing ordinance, we basically gut it, as far as I'm concerned, and we're basically not going to be addressing these kind of issues, which the people are really demanding, especially after the Supreme Court ruling, that we address. So what I did is I went to Perplexity AI, because what I tried to do, instead of just complaining about things, you're spending too much money on buildings at Columbia Pool, I do work to try to come up with alternative ideas. You may not like the ideas I come up with, but next slide, please. I think we need to consider, you know, look at what some possible alternatives are if we're going to have a discussion. So I went, did some work on Perplexity AI, and it came up with some of these suggestions here of additional wording for the definition of resting and camping and so on and so forth. The problem that I see is that there's still going to have to be interpretation of, for example, resting means a brief period of repose without the intent to establish a temporary place to live. So police officers going to have to define what's your intent, okay? We look at here, using the area for sleeping on a recurring basis. So are we going to have police officers go out around to all the parks and private Gear Road and everywhere else and take pictures of everyone there, so that on a daily basis we can say, hey, that guy has been there before, and you have documented proof that he's been there for 3 days. And then what do? Do you tell him he has to move, like with RVs, what is it, 300 feet that they have to move or something like that? So we see, for example, the RVs, the homemade campers, they move from one side of the street to the other side of the street. They're there for 3 days. Then they move, you know, further down the street for 3 days. Then they move another 300 feet. Same thing at parks. So it's not an easy thing, okay? And what I hope is that, according to your letter to the editor, I'm hoping that you will have a presentation here and show us some ideas of alternative wording. And next slide. One of the things that was talked about, the We Care kitchen, that could be used for an overflow. I don't know if we need to pass a local emergency to allow that to happen. So that was a question for George.
Anybody else?
Good evening. I'm Dwayne Alameda. I'm in District 1 resident. I sent you an email late this afternoon. I'd like to surrender this letter that I put together. I'll give it to the clerk. My concern about this measure is that it's broad stroke appliance to me, a citizen who pays taxes. I listen to the captain or the police chief. It seems like we're all concerned about the homeless. The state has thrown money at it. I'm sure that the city of Turlock has put money towards it. We're not coming up with solutions. These are obvious. My concern as a public person is that now my rights are going to be infringed on, because this is going to affect me as a citizen. And I would like the council to take consideration to look at this and come up with a better idea of how we can take this and not just go with the broad stroke, but to define the regulation so that the taxpayer and the person who lives here can still enjoy the parks without having to worry about an interpretation of a law that really affects their lifestyle. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, we'll close public.
Once again, I'm Mary Jackson, and there are some people that weren't able to make it here tonight. Mr. Alameda, I believe it is, was very eloquent. It's a very broad stroke of something that when I first read about it, I thought, wait a minute, we lived at the park when my children were young for hours, and I sat. And so I think what is frustrating is that you're not looking at, I think we're rushing to come up with a statement or code that's really not necessary. I don't think we actually have to say that's against the law. I think if you look at it, and especially Chief Hedden, I don't know, but Fresno is the one who got in trouble about 10 years ago because they cleared a homeless camp, and that's why we have to do the 7 days, as I understand it. But it's also very frustrating when no one wants to see someone bathing in a public fountain or in the kiddie pool. And I just think that we've got to go ahead and write in code. It has to be very simple, but this is, as he said, it's just too general, it's too vague. And I don't want to put our police officers in that situation. The next time that you do a presentation, or maybe I'll email you and ask, I'd like to know how many times the CARES team is here. I know they're here Monday through Friday, correct? And that how many people are they actually talking to? Because it's the same people. And yes, the We Care shelter was full last month when we fed dinner. So the frustrating part is we had a day center for the people to go to, and the majority of the council, Bublak and Moniz and Franco, voted to close it. And it was already funded, and it was very frustrating to me. I don't know if you ever went in there during the day when it was used. And I will go back to, I remember that the person running it said she found 7 people a place to live. And so that's huge. I don't think you don't understand that is a huge amount of people to be, and it's a slow process. Each person has a different story and a different issue. But I really think this goes back to, by doing nothing, they haven't left, and they're going to keep coming. So I don't want to be the next Grants Pass lawsuit. That's my concern. Not only do I not want you to take away sitting in public, because I think that's just asinine, but number 2 is I don't want my tax dollars going to pay for lawsuits. And I think that's what's going to happen if this goes into effect. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, now I will close public comment. Bring it back for comments and/or motion.
I'd like to make a comment. So obviously at the last meeting and in the days since, I voiced my objections to some portions of this. And we received a lot of feedback. I think we're all copied on some emails. And in my understanding, I think that most of the feedback can be summarized in a couple of different ways. You know, some of the members of the public, myself included, are concerned that this ordinance goes too far in that it prohibits normal, innocent behavior like sitting in public. And, you know, I would like to be clear that I'm not reading something into this ordinance that's not there. You know, it plainly reads, quote, "No person may sit, lie, sleep, or camp on a public place at any time." And then it goes on to explain, you know, that those same acts are prohibited on school property, parks, libraries, and the like. You know, other feedback I think could be characterized as, you know, of course this isn't about everybody sitting. You know, it's only going to be enforced against the homeless. And I agree, right? And I know the police won't be warning or citing everybody who's sitting in a park, at a library, on a bench, you know, even sitting in this room, because all of those activities by the letter of the law would be considered violation of this. But I think that's the problem. I think that when nearly everyone in public at some point could be found in violation of this, it's only going to set us up for unequal application of the law. And I trust our police officers that you're going to use your discretion carefully. But I also respect this process enough that I don't want us to create laws that are so vague and overbroad that we risk legal challenge or set ourselves up for practices that just can't really be enforced. So, you know, what I was calling for then, what I'm calling for now is that we write something that's a little more clear, more reasonable, more tailored to the issues at hand. I want our police officers to have the tools to address public nuisances. I support prohibiting camping. I support prohibiting bathing in public. I support prohibiting blocking driveways and doorways. You know, that's all in this ordinance, and it would target actual problems if we take out the sitting in line part. And, you know, I'll say PowerPoint is not my preferred medium of communication, but there are many other cities that have done these sit-lie ordinances, and they are more tailored to time and place, and they say what's okay in there. And so I am calling for something a little bit different. You know, at our last meeting, you showed us pictures, and you did tonight as well, that of potential nuisances, and our city attorney, you know, stated that it would likely be addressed by the camping portions of this. And there are other portions of this ordinance that are about camping. You know, it's unlawful to camp in any public property and any private property. I'm reading right from the ordinance right now. So I don't think we have to go to the extreme lengths of prohibiting sitting and lying down and to uphold the legitimate community standards that we all want to see enforced. So with that, I would like to make a motion that we approve this, but amend it to remove the subsections 5-20-03A and 5-20-03C that include the sitting and lying portions.
Do you have a replacement for it? I'm sorry, do you have a replacement words?
Well, I would like to consider at least taking out the sitting and lying part of it.
But did you, when you had time to write your op-ed, did you have time to like write in what would you prefer the words were?
Well, I am not, you know, our legal expert here, so I'm not going to suggest ordinances, but, you know, we do have an option, like we do all the time, to take things out, suggest, you know, different things, and taking out portions that I don't think fit our community standards is my suggestion.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Will you call the roll, please?
Who's the second?
That was Bixel.
Thank you.
Councilmember Abram?
Yes.
Councilmember Bixel?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Franco?
No.
Councilmember Moniz?
No.
Mayor Bublak?
No. And it fails with the 2-3. Other options?
Yes. Move to approve the motion or in the ordinance as written for the second reading.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Will you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Abram?
No.
Councilmember Bixel?
No.
Vice Mayor Franco?
Yes.
Councilmember Moniz?
Yes.
Mayor Bublak?
Yes, and it passes second reading with a 3-2. Moving on to public hearings. Ms. Werner.
You're not on him? No. Not yet. He ran off. There you go, you're
Oh,
right.
now
It's
I'm
green
on?
now.
I have technical difficulties at Planning Commission too, so again, good evening.
Same mic too, right?
Yeah.
They're setting you up.
Tonight is a presentation just for a report that our housing department has to submit to HUD on an annual basis. It's called our CAPER. And what this does, it kind of gives the performance of the department and how we are achieving our goals in comparison to our consolidated plan. This year has been a little bit challenging. As you know, we've had quite a bit of turnover in staff. We've also brought forward several policies and procedures that we needed to clean up based on some HUD findings that we had in previous reports. So we were concentrating on that, getting those findings cleaned up. So just a number of things that have kind of lacked us have put us behind and doing any, as you see in the previous report. So we do know that we look a little bit bad. So, but I just want to give you a kind of an update. Even though with our first-time home buyers, on I think page 2 of the staff report, it's just a bullet, kind of gives you a summary of some of those things. But our first-time home buyers program, we did not fund any in the past year. Obviously, you could tell that the county didn't either. It's just been a combination of the market and not the housing market in Turlock being a little high, and the $50,000 that up to $50,000 that our first-time home buyers program is not really enough for someone who is making, I believe the median income is $72,000 for a family of 4. They still can't afford a $400,000 to $500,000 home. So one of the things that we're looking at is how we're reaching out to other cities in comparison to see how they're doing the programs, what we can do to either, what adjustments we can do to kind of help our first-time home buyers program and what we need to do to try to get there. There are a couple things that we're kind of looking at is possibly increasing that loan amount. There's also some, HUD does set a purchase price limit. And I guess there's a report that, and I'm sure the Vice Mayor knows more about this, but the real estate, we can get a report from what our real estate market is here, and then we can make a justification to HUD of really if we can make a reduction in what their limits are, because it doesn't reflect what is actually going on in our city and our county. So that is something that we are looking at, our first-time home buyers program. It will definitely be coming back to you with what we're kind of probably seeing as suggestions and getting your input on that as well. Our rehab program, we've only done one for one resident, but we are in the process of, we do have one that is, we're working through with their contractor now. They're getting a new contractor. So we're working through with that homeowner will be getting their rehab as well. And we also have one that is coming up to the loan committee that will be coming forward to the loan committee for a bid also. We have 3 homes that are, that the city still owns, that we will be, that are also in the rehab program, and that will be looking for either transferring to, selling to a first-time home buyers or transferring to a nonprofit, but we got to find out where those kind of things lie, and that's coming up. And we do have an interest list of about 45 people on the list for rehab, so as soon as we get some things cleared up, and we know where we stand with our CDBG loans, and monies that we have, we can actually start looking at that owner-occupied rehab list as well. So I suspect that our CAPER for next year will look a lot better than it does this year. But I think those are the highlights, but if you have any questions.
Questions?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, there is a list.
Yes, there is a list.
The realtors.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing a lot of movement, obviously, in our percentage of completion. Do we have an alternative item we can do besides the first-time home buyers?
That's one of the things that we're going to be looking at. That's, if the reports come back that we just can't, it's, the market is just not gonna help us there, then we're gonna be looking for alternatives and probably looking for some input from council as well.
Yeah, because this is many years of no movement.
Yeah.
I mean, the percentage is really bad.
Yeah.
But if we have another alternative, I'd love to see that. I did see movement from other municipalities, though, that there are other municipalities in there. And was that through an outreach to other municipalities? Do we have someone go to other cities and reach out to them?
I mean, our staff going out to others?
Yeah, because there's some stuff in Patterson, there's stuff in, I believe it was Oakdale, and so we're actually seeing, we never used to see anything from another municipality, so
Right.
there's a number of other municipalities that are actually using
The
the
first,
funding.
their first time on board,
Mhm.
yes, yeah,
Good.
so we did include that in there, yes.
Okay. And then what was the holdup on the list of the 45 rehabs?
Several things. We needed to get our policies and procedures in order and up to date. So we brought those forward to you for approval and adoption earlier this year.
Right.
And then just some old, part of the audit that we got from HUD was some old language that we weren't citing the correct regulations. So we had to clean up a lot of our paperwork before we could go forward.
That's all done now, and it
Yes.
looks like
Yeah.
we're ready to.
Looks like we're ready to go.
Because 45's great movement on that.
Yeah, so I anticipate probably within the next, over the next few years, we'll probably be able to, we'll see a lot more movement.
Thank you.
I do have a question regarding the first-time homebuyer. I know it's an alphabet soup of different funding sources for that, but some of it is the Cal Home and State Home, and I believe we applied for that for first-time homebuyer. Are there other options to us to go back to the state and say we want to reprogram this?
As far as their Cal Home, or just that, I'm not sure. I would need to follow up with Jennifer. She's my expert, but I can definitely look into see if we can, I mean, as far as reappropriating it for other programs other than first-time homebuyers? Or we just want to?
Just well, taking the thought of what are the alternatives? I'm
alternatives,
just
right.
wondering what are the funding alternatives to?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we can definitely follow up on that. If we find out that our first-time homebuyers program may not be viable, what are the other options and how we can use that funding? So yeah, we'll definitely look into that.
Other questions for the director? Okay, I'll open it to the public. Anyone wishing to speak regarding this item? Okay, we'll close public comment and bring it back.
Move to approve. Second.
Sorry. We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Abram? Yes. Councilmember Bixel?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Franco?
Yes.
Councilmember Moniz?
Yes.
Mayor Bublak?
Yes, it passes with a 5-0. Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
All right, the next item, I will be recusing myself as an abundance of caution. I do sit on this committee, so Vice Mayor, you're in charge.
I'll let Mayor lead. All right,
Good
Mr. Sims.
Good
Sorry.
evening, Vice Mayor, council members, city staff, and members of the public. The item before you tonight is asking City Council for a motion to approve payment of an annual investor invoice, $50,000 for year 4 of a 5-year memorandum of understanding, MOU, with Stanislaus Business Alliance, Opportunity Stanislaus. The City of Turlock has been a member of the Stanislaus Business Alliance, currently known as Opportunity Stanislaus, since 1994. Opportunity Stanislaus facilitates economic development and workforce training activities throughout the county and provides support services to cities and businesses within Stanislaus County. Opportunity Stanislaus created a 5-year plan called Opportunity Stanislaus Next Level Together, which was included in the packet. The plan focuses on the following 5 initiatives: improve economic vitality in the community, expand the Volt Institute, grow local business, lead business-driven talent development, drive public policy advocacy for stronger business growth. As an investor in Next Level Together plan, the city has received assistance in the following areas from Opportunity Stanislaus: assisting City of Turlock Human Relations Department in recruiting potential employees to the city, marketing City of Turlock employment opportunities to the regional workforce, providing economic development market analysis reports for retail recruitment to the City of Turlock, providing available Turlock property information to prospective companies interested in establishing their business in the City of Turlock, supporting and assisting City of Turlock Economic Development Department and potential city sports complex project as well. With us tonight, we have the CEO from Opportunity Stanislaus, Mr. Dave White. Mr. White will be providing a brief update on the work that his organization is doing for the City of Turlock, as well as answer any questions should there be any.
Great, thank you. Welcome, Mr. White.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Vice Mayor Franco and members of the council. The mayor, Amy, is on our board of directors, so she rightfully recused herself from this motion or this item. I've been here now since 2013, going on my 11th year. Still love it, and still we're still very excited about the future of not only Turlock but the county and the entire region. I want to talk a little bit about results from our last year and what lies ahead for 2024, 2025. Let's see if I can get this thing to work. There we go. So I want to talk a little bit. I wore my Volt uniform today. Volt Institute is one of our main initiatives, and we have a great partnership with a lot of Turlock enterprises through Volt Institute. We have right now, actually in September, we just enrolled 17 students in Volt from the Turlock Adult School.
Very nice.
That's exciting. And we have more that are coming, and these individuals are finding jobs. Just to give you an idea of how impactful Volt is, we've done the research, and people that come into Volt, and when they usually have a job when they come in, sometimes making minimum wage. When they go out, they find a new job. And we're finding that they're getting a $20,000 increase from what they were making before to what they were making after. I'd like to tell you just a quick story about a young man from Turlock who came into our program. I just signed his graduation certificate today. He came in and he got a job offer pretty quickly after starting Volt Institute, our industrial maintenance mechanic program. After about 4 months in the program, he got hired by a company called Pratt Industries and making about $30 an hour. And this is a young man who was making minimum wage beforehand. And then a few months later, he got a call from another company, Georgia Pacific, where he was offered $48 an hour.
Wow.
Now, I have the authority to share those facts with you in this proceeding. But this is the kind of impact we're seeing. Now, just think about that. Like these 17 Turlock residents who just came into our program. Just think about the economic impact that will be in Turlock when each of them is going to be making $20,000 more per year. Just think about their ability to buy things, to buy a car, to maybe hopefully get into a home. That's the kind of impact we're seeing. So that's just at our institute, that's at our training center in Modesto. This last year we started Volt on the Go, which is a mobile training program where we have the ability to take our training on the road and provide training at a company site or at a community center. So far this last year, we've done, well, you see right on here, I'm going to give you, those are the highlights. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. But I want to tell you a little bit about some of the Volt on the Go trainings that we've done. Okay, so I'll get into the future in just a minute. So in this past year, we've done electrical and mechanical training, 3 cohorts at Turlock Adult School, 4 cohorts at Dairy Farmers of America. We did which in partnership with Associated Feed. We did a cohort just last week at Foster Farms, and we're now working on several other cohorts of training. A cohort is usually 10 to 15 people that are getting trained. And we're taking this really exciting training on the road. For the future, we're going to continue to expand Volt on the Go. We're going to do more trainings, more opportunities. Not only can we do electrical training, mechanical training, we just received a grant to do what's called smart controls troubleshooting, which means that we can train people on how to troubleshoot through PLCs, programmable logic controls, that run all the machines, that interact with all the different processes. And this is where the industry is going. This is automation, robotics. And so that grant will enable us to go out and provide training for free at company locations where they can have this really great advanced training. We just started a partnership with Inductive Automation. So if you're in industry, you probably have heard about a product called Ignition. Ignition is an AI application. It's a software that goes over the cloud and it interacts with the machines through the PLCs on these machines and gets real-time data that a person can monitor and see exactly what's happening on those machines. They could be in the Bahamas on the beach and get this real-time information coming from these machines. So Ignition is taking the world by storm, and we're going to be able to provide certification for free for our Volt students. That's coming. We have new programs in SCADA and HMI, Human Machine Interface, coming. Continued focus on growing our existing training center. Right now we have 90 students in that training center. We've already graduated 400. They're all out there in the community making really good money. And now we're getting questions from other groups around the state about wanting to bring Volt to them. And we're being very hesitant. We just want to make sure we walk before we run. So at least we're trying to tell them how we did it so that if they want to do it themselves, they can. Another thing we're working on is a partnership with MJC. MJC wants to work with us. They want to give our Volt students, we're talking about prior learning credit, where a student goes through Volt, they take a class, they shouldn't have to take that class again at MJC. They should be able to get credit for it. We're also working on complementary training programs with them and creating pathways from Volt to MJC. Our talent development, that's a different department, but we're focusing on, if you go on our website, there's all sorts of really great information on updated labor laws, best practices on how to hire and retain workers. We have a focus on research. We have some very powerful tools. We can tell companies what they should be paying, what they should be, and who they're competing against any time of the year. And we've provided lots of data to local companies here in Turlock. We're collaborating with SHRM, which is the Human Resource Management Organization. And we're also partnering with Stanislaus 2030 on all of their initiatives to improve our workforce. And by the way, we do a great job helping recruitments, and we are looking forward to working with the city of Turlock on some of their recruitments. We've been very successful with other cities and with Turlock, working with Turlock, but we're excited about doing that as well. Economic development. We actually have a company that we can't announce today, but we have a company, I just heard today, and you probably heard the same thing, that we've all been working on, a manufacturer that's going to be making an announcement in the WISP, a new company coming in. And so that was a great win, following up on the win that we had a couple of years ago with Divert. And so we're starting to see a pattern of companies coming in. And so we're going to be working on building relationships with Bay Area brokers. We're going to do an event here in Turlock, October 15th, next week, or in about a month. It's called Opportunity Development, where we're going to be bussing in people, all the brokers, and showing them the WISP and other projects in Turlock, just to help promote what's going on here. Our SBDC, Small Business Development Center, we have a very active program in Turlock. We're working with your current advisor, consultant, and Herman told me today, Herman Zavalza, who's our director, told me today that he had a 3-hour meeting with that individual, trying to figure out ways to collaborate. And I know that you have you're planning on a small grant program for these small businesses that we're working with you on. We're going to be establishing a flexible pipeline funding model that helps stakeholders and enhancing workforce development and all sorts of things through the SBDC. We have a great relationship with Beam Circular. This is the Stanislaus 2030 initiative to bring the biomanufacturing industry to Stanislaus County. And Divert is certainly in that space. This other company that we'll be announcing soon is also in that space. And these are jobs that are high-paying jobs that really advance and diversify our economy. So we have a lot going on. We're very excited about our partnership. Our new chairman is Jim Vieira. I think you all know Jim. He's from Turlock, and he'll be the chairman of the board for the next 2 years. And of course, Mayor Bublak is on our board. So I'm here to answer any questions, and thank you again for your investment and great partnership, City of Turlock.
Great, thank you, Mr. White. Any questions from the council? Opening up to public. Any questions, comments?
John Gebelite, as a product of a technical school, many decades ago, it was a fabulous thing to have that instead of that. It was a 6-month course to learn programming and all that kind of good stuff. My biggest problem with high schools today is that, we want everybody to be on a college track, and that's just dumb. There's so many students out there, and as far as I'm concerned, that I hope that somehow, some way, you can get in touch with high schools and things like that in the 10th grade or after the 10th grade and make your things known, all the different things, doing presentations of things and making it available. My nephew was a product of a welding program, and when he graduated high school, he had to wait until he was 18, but after he was 18, he became, a part of a company that does welding, and he's now on his way to getting an HVAC certification. So I hope that we can get into the high schools, and I know there's a lot of people doing that, but I just think it's just so important that, with the way things have gone with colleges and everything else, that there's an alternative for people to do something in the summertime, in their junior years, senior years, and things like that, that you can do that, not wait until the JC time and whatever, that you get them started. Thank you.
Thank you, and we are. In fact, we did a presentation to Turlock School District this last year in the high schools, and yeah, we recognize that. And let me just ask you a question: $48 an hour. Do you know what that is per year? It's $100,000 a year, and there's no debt. So that's what we're seeing. I mean, that's what they're paying a really good maintenance mechanic these days. And it's just a great career. And you get in these companies, and there's room for growth. And if you want to go the college path, a lot of these companies have tuition reimbursement programs where you can go on to college if you want.
Excellent.
So
Any other public? Ron?
I think these are great ideas. I'm wondering if you have any medical-related programs. I asked because when I lived in Southern California, I did a lot of video production for the Ventura Adult School System, and in particular the Simi Valley Adult School, and they had a very robust medical program. Licensed vocational nursing, respiratory therapist, surgical technician, x-ray technician, were CNA, CMA, so on and so forth, and their cost was like 1/3 of what it would be if you went to a private place. And I know it really helped a lot of people, so I'm hoping we have something like that here.
I'm glad you asked that question, because we believe in staying within our swim lane very carefully. We're a small organization, and we don't want to get, our bandwidth is limited, but we have lots of hospitals that are invested in Opportunity Stanislaus, and they produce good jobs too. And so we have a partnership. We brought in a group called Health Force Partners. They started in San Joaquin County. They're like us, and we're partnering with them to do exactly what you said, to start really working on providing good career paths for these type of jobs in the medical field.
Excellent. Any other public questions, comments? No? All right, then I'll close public comment and bring it back. Looking for a motion?
Motion to approve.
Clerk, call the roll. Roll, please.
Councilmember Abram?
Yes.
Councilmember Bixel?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Franco?
Yes.
Councilmember Moniz?
Great, thank you. It passes 4-0. Let's bring back our mayor so she can take back over our meeting. Thank you, Mr. White. We appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Sims.
Good job.
All right, so 10 is done. City manager report is already put in there, and so we go to council members' comments and announcements. That should have been in writing, was that, did you put it in writing? Okay, will you tell us then?
Yes, Mayor, members of the council, at your last meeting, questions were asked regarding the repair work on the roof and some of the electrical at the senior center. That project was initially being handled by Public Works. As the scope of work was being completed, it became clear that it needed to go through the traditional route, which is our engineering department, to do the analysis on the work that needs to be done, the scope of work, any engineering, and then put it out to bid. That is typically a 16 to 18-month process based upon the current workload. The director evaluated the project, did not see a necessity or a benefit to declaring an emergency on it, given the fact that there are plenty of professional roofing companies that can do a temporary patch for the upcoming winter. And that's exactly what will happen. A temporary patch will be completed. Engineering is expected to be done November, no later than December, on the scope of work and putting it out to bid. And the job is expected to be completed. All the repairs will be expected to be completed sometime late May, early June. That completes my follow-up on the question from the last meeting.
Thank you. Council member, items for future consideration, comments, and announcements all at once? Nothing?
All right. Emmanuel Medical Center Foundation and United Samaritans are doing free hearing tests and hearing aids for seniors through Costco. There's a flyer that was put out, and if you can't find the flyer online, email me and I'll get you a copy of the flyer. Another excellent program for our seniors. Please join us tomorrow for our remembrance ceremony for 9/11, Station 51. Be there around 8:30.
31.
30, sorry, 31.
We haven't built that one yet.
30, it's not built yet, really? Starts at 8:46 a.m. is the actual time that the ceremony will take place. It's simultaneous throughout the nation. So, and future consideration, can I request a update on the housing element? Because I know we're doing an update. I just don't know where it's at. Thank you.
Mr. Bridegroom, I understand you were offended by my comments about Gear Road. It was my intention to give you the kudos for beating that drum, and that's what I was doing because I believed that you beating that drum is what motivated staff to find that money and push that project through, sir. So I'm sorry that those comments offended you. That was not my intention. Code enforcement, thank you. Captain Rodriguez, he already left. He got his award and bugged out of here. Thank you, you and your team. You're making a really big difference in my district, cleaning it up. I'm so grateful for all the efforts, and you can see it on the surface. Very good. Last thing I want to say is in the last 2 weeks, I've talked to electeds from Merced, Ceres, and Modesto, and they all want our ordinance. Thank you.
Nice. Make sure that you know that there's a meeting at 6 o'clock on Thursday here regarding 1617 Colorado Avenue. As well, I'd probably like to see an item about the mobile home, fixing them up as we're coming into winter again. And we talked about how we were gonna, focus on helping people get the roofs and stuff like that done. So if we can see where that money went or where it should be going, that would be helpful. And then we have closed session.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Tonight's closed session, item 14A is conference with labor negotiators, California Government Code 54957.6A. Agency designated representative is Deputy City Manager Sarah Eddy. And employee organizations are Turlock City Employees Association, Turlock Firefighters Association, Local 2434, Turlock Management Association Public Safety, and Turlock Management Employees. Item 14B is conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, California Government Code 54956.9D2, number of cases 4. Item 14C is conference with legal counsel, initiation of litigation, California Government Code 54956.9D4, number of cases 1.
All right, and we'll report out. Should we have something?
You don't have to if you don't want to.
We are, and we're back. Mr. Petulakis.
As to agenda item 14C, I want to report that votes were taken in the city council, both unanimous on 5-0 votes, that as to the matter involving the facility at 1617 Colorado Avenue, the council has waived the confidentiality requirement under the municipal code and the government code for closed session matters, and has also waived the attorney-client privilege as to those same matters.
We are closed out for tonight, and we'll have a meeting on 6 o'clock on Thursday.